is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of volleyball to discuss, as we had not one, not two, not three, but 13 upsets in Week 10 of the NCAA Women's Volleyball season. Two of them were headlined by Iowa State beating Baylor and Arizona State. Who had the Cyclones pulling off 2 wins? Also, how about Texas A&M taking down Texas? What a win for Gig'em. Also, how about Kentucky taking down Texas in straight set at Gregory Gymnasium? Are the Wildcats for real? They can be set for the Aggies. And Nebraska team continues to just keep on trucking as they swept Wisconsin on the road and they swept Oregon at home. Is this the year of the Husker? Also, modern day NCAA team will be duking it out once again for the CIS Sussex Division I crown. Who will come out on top? Will modern day three-peat or will Gear History rewrite the history? Champion Volleyball, back to that. Let's about to get some volleyball action here on Set Point. It's Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio. Your feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you're listening from. Either way, you've made your way to episode 323 of Set Point. Without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without iSports Radio providing the platform to go live on YouTube, Twitch, and on X. Please do follow iSports Radio on several different social media platforms, mainly X, formerly known as Twitter, and TikTok. Also, subscribe to iSports Radio on YouTube. We would greatly appreciate it. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers, and with your help, we could definitely make it happen. So thank you to everyone who has already subscribed, and if you haven't already, definitely subscribe. For the last 11 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to two of our sponsors and both of our sponsors, Plant Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. So without any further delay, let's get on into what our sponsors are all about. I will see you all in a little bit.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out our amazing sponsors and definitely check out all of our shows on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And the way you can follow Setpoint on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, @set_point.ie, and on TikTok @set_point.ie. Once again, I got to get back to doing that whole thing. I really got to get back on the TikTok train. Hopefully I will this week. This week has to be the week. You can also follow me personally on X as well, @Teran Rodriguez 1. You could also follow Setpoint on Instagram @set_point.iesr. So without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. So week 10 was absolutely amazing. It was scary hours, hence why the title is called Last Week Was Scary Hours on Halloween Week in NCAA Women's Volleyball. Because this week, well, last week was Halloween, and last week also had 13 upsets. Absolute chaos in the NCAA women's volleyball realm. And we also got a bunch of five-setters as well. And it actually started on Tuesday when number 23 Colorado outlasted Northern Colorado in 5. Northern Colorado is a pretty darn good team. They're actually a very good mid-major school, if you ask me, in terms of women's volleyball. So that's not too surprising. And also, in-state rivalries are just so tough to predict. So a great effort from Northern Colorado, but in the end, the Buffs were able to pull off the win. Then Wednesday, we had number 6 Arizona State taking down number 13 TCU in 4. Number 8 Louisville swept Notre Dame. We had this upset right here. So this is where pretty much the upsets began. We had UCF taking down BYU in 4 sets on the road. First of all, Smith Fieldhouse is nowhere near easy to win at. Second of all, this was UCF's first upset win. And I think their first win against a ranked opponent since I think 2021, if not 2022. Either way, it was a massive win for the Golden Knights, as their transition into the Big 12 hasn't really been the best, but now they pulled off this monster win as they were led by Ava Armour, who had 25 kills. They also got 7 kills from Ellett Chapman, Fallon Stewart, and Sasha Cohen. As a team, UCF hit 301, and they had a whopping 11 blocks as a team. They only had 32 digs, which isn't a lot, but BYU didn't have too many digs as well. They only had 35, but BYU did have a good number of blocks. They, too, had 11 blocks as a team, as Sully Davis continued her strong campaign, as she had 19 kills. Sophia Callahan added 8 kills. But one player who really needs to step it up for BYU is Claire Little Chambers. She hit in the negatives, and she only had 5 kills. I really want her to have monster games, but I guess Sully Davis is kind of the lead catalyst, as BYU as a team, they hit only 112. Yikes. So that's a big win for UCF. Will that propel them to make the NCAA tournament? I doubt it, but that's still a nice little feather in their cap. They finally got the whole upset drought off their back, which was a nice little feather in their cap. Then we had this big win, staying in the Big 12. We had Iowa State sweeping Baylor, which was a nice win for Iowa State. They hadn't really been the most eye-popping in terms of this season, but the 3 sets they won were fairly close. First 2 sets were decided by 25-23, and then the third set was decided 25-21, as the Cyclones were led by Tierney Jackson, Reagan Hanfelt, and Alea Goolsby, who had 9 kills. Goolsby, that's a nice name before Halloween. It's not spelled ghoul like Goul. It's spelled Goolsby. Anyway, Iowa State hit only 176, but they did have 56 digs. In a 3-set match, that's pretty good. And they also had 10 blocks as a team as well, so that's pretty nice. Baylor had 11 blocks as a team, and they had 60 digs, as the Bears were led by Bailey Warren, who had 13 kills. Victoria Davis added 9 kills, and Manuela Bibinbe added 8 kills. As a team, Baylor hit 134, which unfortunately is not ideal for them. And both teams were pretty much dead even in the serve battle. But in the end, Iowa State was able to pull off the win, which was a very nice win on their behalf. And then jumping to the Big Ten, we had number 20 Minnesota sweeping Illinois. That was a pretty solid win, because I think Illinois is under the radar, but they still have yet to show me what they could truly do. I actually will be seeing them, or I hope to see them, when they play at USC on USC Senior Night. Speaking of SC, perfect transition to go to their little matchup. They, number 22 USC, swept UCLA, getting a little revenge over those gutty little Bruins after the Bruins took them down at Pauley Pavilion in the first meeting. This time around, the Trojans, or the women of Troy, had the last laugh, as Adania Faumuina led the way with 16 kills. London Weejay and Abigail Mullen both had 11 kills, and Mia Taverdi added 8 kills. As a team, USC hit 285, and they had 6.5 blocks and 46 digs. They only had 2 aces, but they only missed 6 serves, which isn't bad. UCLA, on the other hand, they missed 11 serves with only 2 aces. The blocking was not there. For a team that is pretty tall and athletic, UCLA only had 4 blocks as a team. They did have 45 digs, but that was just one below USC, as the Bruins were led by Sheridan Leverett and Maggie Lee, both having 11 kills. Mariana Singletary both had 9 kills. As a team, UCLA, this is the surprising number. They hit 302, yet they still lost. So, I get it. The scores were pretty tight, as the first 2 sets were decided 25-23, kind of like the Baylor-Iowa State match. But in the third set, USC was able to win that. They held off UCLA in a little bit of a mini comeback, as USC was up 21-19 at one point in that third set, but then SC closed off the match with a 4-1 run to take that third set and the match, which was a nice win for USC. That could have easily been a trap matchup, just because UCLA, they're kind of looking to vie for better seeding in terms of the NCAA tournament. I'm certain the Bruins will get in, but this win isn't really helping their cause. I'm certain UCLA is not going to be missing the NCAA tournament, as they should have themselves a record above 500. That's been the problem with UCLA the past few years. They haven't had a record above 500, which is not really good, if you ask me, just because they really need it's been concerning for them. I can't believe they haven't really been They had a losing season. Well, last year they had a losing season. The year before was just kind of a lost cause, which I wouldn't say it was a lost cause. I think they barely missed the tournament because they were the last few in, and then they lost to Cal of all teams, and that was when Cal was pretty bad. So looking at UCLA's record, they're 13-9. They did beat Washington yesterday, so that's a nice feather in their cap. They've got Oregon, which the last time these two teams met, Oregon swept them. That's at Oregon, which is going to be a tough one. Northwestern, I'm sure UCLA can win that. Nebraska, that's probably not going to be a win right there. Rutgers, UCLA should win that. Illinois, they should win that because it's at Illinois, or it's at Pauley Pavilion. Washington at Washington. UCLA should win that, and then Michigan and Michigan State to close off the regular season. So looking at UCLA has 8 more games left. So they need to at least win 2 more to guarantee themselves a 500 record or better. So I'm sure they'll beat Rutgers. I'm sure they'll beat Northwestern. I say that with all due respect to Northwestern because the Northwestern's actually been improved. My only qualm with Northwestern is they haven't really proved it. So we'll see. But I'm certain, I'm almost certain or UCLA will make the NCAA tournament. So you have that right there. So that's that right there. I'll get into USC in a little bit, but jumping to Thursday, we had Kansas taking down Cincinnati in 4. That was kind of the only ranked matchup. There wasn't anything too notable in terms of that day. And then jumping to Friday, the day of Halloween and the day of lots of frights and terrors, we had number 1 with Nebraska sweeping Wisconsin, which, let's be honest, Wisconsin, they're not going anywhere. They are still on one. They are not like Nebraska has just been playing so good volleyball. And let me just switch this over here. Yes. So Nebraska, if there's one team that's not skipping a beat, it is the Huskers. They're not going anywhere. This Nebraska team just continues to impress. They have yet to drop a set in Big Ten play. That's the big thing. Though they did get challenged in the first set against the Badgers, but after that first set, I think it was just smooth sailing for Nebraska. Then we had the big upset. Down goes number 2, Texas, as Texas A&M TAMU took down the Longhorns in 5 at Reed Arena in College Station. Massive win right there for the Aggies. Biggest win of the season by far, as Kendall Stowers led the way with 22 kills. Ifena Kosakpala added 15 kills, and Logan Linicki had 12 kills. That's a scary combination for Texas A&M. Logan Linicki didn't even have her best game, and yet still Texas A&M won. She also had 17 digs, though, so I'll give her that. And she had 6 block assists. A&M also hit 310, which was huge, and they also had a whopping 14 blocks as a team, and they had 47 digs, and they had 4 aces, which was pretty darn good as well. Texas, on the other hand, they had 4 blocks, they had 60 digs, and they had 5 aces compared to the 8 service errors, as Texas was led by Tori Stafford, who had 24 kills. She hit 348, which was pretty impressive. Abby Vanderwall added 19 kills, and she hit 389. Kari Spears had 12 kills. She was solid. She hit 259. And Ella Swindle had a double-double with 49 assists and 10 digs. Texas actually hit 329, which was kind of the surprising statistic. The only problem is that their blocking was just not there. Their digging, however, was there, as Emma Halter had 16 digs. I think she had a milestone. Halter also had 9 assists to go along with those 16 digs as well. So I want to say Halter had some sort of milestone when it came to Texas and the digging and the dig leader. But I can't really be too sure about that. But it is what it is. Moving on, in other SEC action, this was kind of a nice little matchup. Number 3 Kentucky swept Vanderbilt. This was kind of a homecoming for Azani Taylor and Anders Nelson. Taylor was a former player at Kentucky, and then Nelson was a former assistant coach at Kentucky. Unfortunately for their team, the Commodores could not solve the Wildcats, as the Wildcats continue to roll in SEC play. Well, not roll, but they just continue to win no matter what. And then number 4 Pitt swept Duke. No surprise there. Number 5 Stanford took down NC State in 4. Little surprising, but again, Stanford's a young team, and everyone's going to want to crack at Stanford, especially since they're one of the top teams in the ACC. Then jumping back to the Big 12, we had this little upset. We had Iowa State pulling off another upset. They took down Arizona State in 5. Massive win right there for the Cyclones. So I was actually going to have Texas A&M as my team of the week, but I think Iowa State is making a compelling argument in my opinion. As the Cyclones were actually led by Maya Duckworth, who had 16 kills, Tierney Jackson had 15 kills, Nayeli Tia had 12 kills, and Reagan Hanfelt had 10 kills. Iowa State nearly had 5 different players with 10 or more kills, as Amiri Hendricks Walker added 7 kills as well. Iowa State had a hitting percentage of 204, not too bad. They had 4 aces, 69 digs, and 9 blocks. As for the Sun Devils, they actually had 15 blocks, which was pretty good. They had 70 digs, so their defense wasn't terrible. They did have an even service error and service ace ratio, 7 aces, 7 service errors. They hit 179, which was slightly lower than Iowa State, as they were led by Noemi Glover, who had 18 kills. Bailey Miller added 14 kills. So it's a tough loss for Arizona State, but honestly, I think they caught Iowa State on a really good week, as the Cyclones really proved themselves, and this is a great way to make yourself well-known and get yourself possibly into the NCAA tournament. I think that pretty much does it for them. I think they could probably make the NCAA tournament with that. So they just can't afford to fall at the altar. Then we go to the ACC. Back to the ACC, we had UNC, North Carolina, number 21 North Carolina, upsetting number 7 SMU in 5. The Tar Heels aren't the real deal, as North Carolina, they wound up winning the first set 25-19, lost the second set in close fashion by 2, 25-23, won the third set 25-22, got decimated in set 4, 25-13, and edged out the fifth set by winning it 15-13, as North Carolina was led by Safi Hampton, who had 22 kills. Lainey Smith and Chelsea Thorpe added 13 kills. UNC hit 278, which was pretty solid if you ask me. They had 60 digs and 9 blocks. SMU, on the other hand, they had 9 blocks as a team, 64 digs. They had a nice little perfect service ace ratio, 5 aces, 5 errors, as Malia Jones led the way with 27 kills. Krista Wilburn added 11 kills. Favor Anyanwanu added 9 kills, but unfortunately it was not enough, as the Mustangs fell to the Tar Heels. North Carolina is really impressed with me. I didn't think they were all that impressive, but honestly, the fact that they were able to pull off that big of a win, their success in the ACC is no accident. I thought at first they were perfect because they hadn't played the likes of Louisville and Pitt and SMU, but honestly, they've just really impressed me, and I think that might be one of the more scarier teams going forward. Then we had Purdue reverse sweeping Michigan State, which that was a very close call. The third and fourth, so first 2 sets. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. Purdue nearly got reverse swept, as first 2 sets, Purdue took them 25-22 and 25-16. Third and fourth set, Michigan State took them by 2, 27-25 and 25-23. And then the fifth set, Purdue was able to inch out that fifth set 15-12, as the Boilermakers were led by Kenna Wallard, who had 26 kills, Grace Heaney, 15 kills, and Akasha Anderson, 11 kills. As a team, Purdue hit 306, which is pretty nice if you ask me. Their serving could be a little bit better. They did miss 12 serves, but that's all right. They did have 5 aces. They really shined in the blocking department. They had a whopping 19 blocks as a team, and they had 74 digs, which was pretty darn good. Michigan State did have 77 digs, but they only had 4 blocks as a team, as the Spartans were led by Bianca Mumculler, who had 19 kills. Carmen Way added 12 kills, and Carolina Stanzezukska added 11 kills, and Evie Dozema added 9 kills. But it wasn't enough, as Michigan State was denied the upset against Purdue. Purdue has been look, I'm going to say this. I didn't think Purdue was going to be really good. I thought they were going to take a massive step back just because of all of the players they lost, like Eva Hudson and whatnot. But they've really impressed me. I think that's the team that has really been the most pleasant surprise of this season. We had Creighton sweeping DePaul, and then back to the Big 12. We had another upset. We had Arizona sweeping number 13 TCU. Man, just when you thought TCU was actually looking good, they wind up taking a step back as the Wildcats, last year's NIVC champion, they wound up pulling off the win. Jordan Wilson led the way with 14 kills and 11 digs, while Adriana Bridges added 11 kills. The Wildcats hit 224. They had more aces than service errors, which was nice. Carly Cisneros added 3 aces to go along with 5 kills and 8 digs. Avery Scogins led the dig department for Arizona with 15 digs, and then she also had 1 kill, which was pretty nice as well. Arizona as a team, they had 59 digs, and then they also had 8 blocks. TCU as a team, they only had 4 blocks as a team, and they had 54 digs. They didn't serve too bad. 8 service errors, 5 aces, as the Horned Frogs were led by Becca Kelly, who had 12 kills, while Evan Hendricks added 11 kills. I think Halloween was kind of the day of the upset. So if I'm TCU, I'm not thinking too much of this. I just don't want the losses to stack up too many times. And then Miami swept Boston College. No surprise there. BYU swept Kansas State. Not too surprising. Another pair of upsets right here. First off, we had Missouri, the Mizzo Tigers, taking down Tennessee in 4. Very impressive win for Missouri. They've had an up and down season, but they're able to get back on track as Kaylin Alexander led the way with 19 kills. Maka Lobagio added 11 kills. Janet Damaris added 10 kills. The Tigers hit 283. They had 64 digs, and then they had 9 blocks, which was pretty solid. The Lady Vols of Tennessee had 63 digs, only 6 blocks, and they hit 173 as they were led by Hayden Kubik, who had 15 kills. Star Williams, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. She had 11 kills. It's nice. Wait, Star Williams, yeah, she was the former player at Long Beach State, and then she jumped to New Mexico, and now she's at Tennessee. So it's good to see her settling in at Tennessee. Unfortunately, it was just not meant to be for Tennessee as they wound up losing to the Mizzo Tigers. Then we had Colorado, number 23 Colorado, upending Baylor in 4. Man, tough week for Baylor, but not a solid week for Colorado after how they almost lost to Northern Colorado. The Buffs needed a nice little, I wouldn't say statement win, but a nice little convincing win to silence the Heretics, as the Buffs were led by Anna Burilovic, who had 18 kills. Kayla Payne added 9 kills. Sydney Jordan had 8 kills. As a team, the Buffs hit 261. They had 10.5 blocks and 44 digs. They had a better service ace to service error ratio as they had 8 aces to 7 service errors. Whereas Baylor, they had 11 service errors and 2 service aces only. They had 5 blocks and they had 46 digs, as Ksenia Rachmanchik led the way with 24 kills. She was the only player in double digits in terms of kills for the Bears, as Gabriel Essex had 8 kills as well. It wasn't enough, as Baylor just had a tough week, tough day at the office for the Bears, but there's always a new week to try to bounce back. Closing things off in the SEC, we had number 25, Florida sweeping Georgia, number 24, Indiana sweeping Maryland, and then also in the Big Ten, we had this little upset, Michigan taking down number 19, Penn State in 5. Great win for the Wolverines, winning in Ann Arbor. As Michigan's had themselves quite the great turnaround. They had 4 different players with 10 or more kills, as Ella Demetrician and Allison Jacobs led the way with 18 kills. Samara Gordon, I'm familiar with covering her. She had 13 kills, and Serena Nyambio had 10 kills, which was good. And then Jenna Haynes, who I'm also familiar covering back in the past, she had 6 kills, no hitting errors, which was pretty nice. Michigan had a hitting percentage of .275. They had 9 blocks. They had only 2 aces, and they missed 11 serves, but not too terrible. Penn State had a whopping 11 aces, but they missed 12 serves. But still, I like that service error ratio. They had 64 digs, and then they had 12 blocks as Kennedy Martin led the way with 27 kills. Alexis Ewing, I'm 99% certain she's related to Patrick Ewing. Perhaps. She had 12 kills, and then Emmy Selman had 11 kills. Gabriel Nichols added 8 kills for Penn State, who hit only 177. So, man, this has been such a tough year for Penn State. Just so much animosity going on within them in terms of like winning and losing. And then obviously with the whole Izzy Stark thing, man, if there's ever, this might be I wouldn't say this is the worst follow-up year following winning a national championship in NCAA women's volleyball history, but it kind of is. I mean, but I digress. Anyway, Saturday we had Louisville sweeping Notre Dame, Creighton outlasting Marquette in 5. So you never know with this rivalry, as the Blue Jays. The Toronto Blue Jays weren't the only Blue Jays that had a scare, but unlike the Toronto Blue Jays, the Creighton Blue Jays were able to pull off the win to remain undefeated in Big East Conference play as Creighton was led by Ava Martin, who had 30 kills. Man, 30 kills. And the crazy part is she hit 464 and she had 10 digs. This girl was on fire. Jaya Johnson and Abby Hayes added 13 kills, and Kiara Reinhart added 12 kills. Creighton hit 370, which was very nice. They had 7 aces, which was pretty darn good. 3 of them went to Sydney Bressinger, who had, like I said, 3 aces. Ava Martin had 2 aces. The Jays also had 67 digs to go along with 6 blocks. Not the best, but still, they made up for it in the offensive department. Marquette, on the other hand, they had 9.5. Well, actually, no, they had 4 blocks as a team. 4 blocks as a team, and they had 53 digs. They hit 256, which wasn't bad. Missed 9 serves, got 5 aces, 3 of which went to Adriana Studler, who also had 7 assists and 19 digs. Marquette was led by Natalie Ring, who had 23 digs, while Elena Radef and Hattie Bray both had 10 kills. It wasn't enough for Marquette, as it's just been tough times for the Golden Eagles in Big East Conference play. They had the 2 losses to, I think it was Villanova and Georgetown, and now they suffered a tough loss to Creighton. At least they beat DePaul, though. They beat DePaul, which was a nice little win right there. So I still think Marquette will still make the Big East Conference tournament, but it might get a little dicey. They just can't afford to flirt with the disaster. I think Marquette is really pushing it in terms of making the NCAA tournament. I feel they got to win the Big East Conference tournament, because if they don't, they're pretty much toast. Moving on, we had number 14 Kansas sweeping West Virginia, and the last matchup involving ranked teams, we had number 22 USC outlasting number 20 Minnesota on the road in 5, which was very nice. A very nice win for the women of Troy. A great week for them overall. They beat their rival UCLA at home, and they pulled off a nice little road upset. So if it weren't for the Creighton win, you can make the argument that this might be their best win of the season. Albeit Minnesota was beaten up. You all got to remember that Minnesota has 4 of its starters on IR for the remainder of the season, as London Weejay led the way with 25 kills. Can I also just say that London Weejay's mother, Morgan, is just a very good human being. Amazing coach, but also amazing human being as well. Great person. I met her when she was coaching. Great person just overall. Moving on, London Weejay led the way with 25 kills and 12 digs. That's what we call a Christmas lineup, a Christmas stat line right there. See what I did there? Anyway, London Weejay, 25 kills, 12 digs. Adania Faumuina added 14 kills. Abigail Mullen had 10 kills. The digs were kind of distributed. They had 4 different players with 10 or more digs, as surprisingly, Galit Trubin led the way with 12 digs, along with Weejay. Taylor Deckard had 10 digs, and Mullen had 10 digs as well. Reese Messer had 9 digs, along with her 54 assists and 4 kills. USC as a team, they hit 349. That was very impressive, and They had 7 aces, 3 of which went to Messer. They did miss 11 serves, which isn't too terrible. 63 digs for USC on the night, and then they had 14 blocks as a team, which was very good. The Golden Gophers, on the other hand, they had 57 digs. They had 8.5 blocks. They had, I'm looking at this number, 15 aces. 15 service aces, and they still lost? Man, either USC had the worst night in serve receive, or Minnesota was just hitting those serves like nobody's business. 9 of those service aces went to Carly Gilk. She nearly had a triple-double, for goodness sake. She had 12 kills, 9 service aces, and 11 digs. She was 1 ace away from a triple-double. Oh, Minnesota. Julia Hansen led the way for Minnesota with 26 kills. Unfortunately, it was just not enough, as Minnesota... Look, I don't get how Minnesota has 9 service aces from one player and 15 aces as a team, and yet they lose. You would think against a young team like USC, they would win that one. They would kind of win that one, but especially since USC was kind of coming off of a win over their rival, which could have been a letdown spot, but credit to the young Trojans. They were able to pull off the win. Anyway, but yeah, nice win for USC, and I have some questions for USC. So USC women's volleyball, look, I really, if there's one thing I really want out of USC women's volleyball is I want them to host the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. I really want them to host the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. Why? Because I will definitely attend that, no doubt about it. And those 2 wins right there are massive for them, as those 2 wins actually help them climb the AVCA ranking. So looking at USC's schedule, they are home against Northwestern. They should probably win that, with all due respect to Northwestern. And that's actually going to be a homecoming for Tim Nolan, as he's a USC alum, USC men's volleyball alum. Washington, that should be a win, though it's going to be tough to beat Washington at Washington, but I think USC can pull it off. Rutgers, that should be a win. Nebraska's going to be a tough one. That right there is going to be a tough one right there. I'm going to go to that matchup. I have plans to go to that matchup, but honestly, that's going to be such a tough matchup. But I really want to see Nebraska in person. But I kind of expect USC to lose. But if they can play Nebraska tough, that could actually help them go a long way. Anyway, after Nebraska, USC has Oregon on the road. That might be a tough matchup. Oregon is really good at home. Even though USC swept Oregon, and even though Oregon hasn't been the best team, I think for USC that's going to be a massive test. And then November 22nd, another match that I plan on going to, Illinois. That's going to be USC's senior night, because that's their last home game of the season. Illinois is an iffy team. I think they can win that matchup, but at the same time, it's like Illinois wants to prove that they can. They want to prove they can make the NCAA tournament. And then Michigan State and Michigan are USC's last 2 matches. Those are on the road. The Michigan match really scares me, just because I feel USC will be in a hostile environment, and Michigan will be fighting for its NCAA tournament live. So if anything, USC is going to – they don't face any more ranked opponents outside of Nebraska, but at the same time, there's no gimme, except for the likes of maybe Rutgers. No offense to Rutgers, of course. And maybe Northwestern. And again, that's all due respect to Northwestern. I'm not trying to badmouth them, or I'm not trying to say they're the Raiders of NCAA women's volleyball, but I think USC can handle them, especially since it's going to be at Galen Center, but I digress. And then I guess a few notable non-conference or non-ranked versus ranked matchups, or some mid-major matchups. We had Long Beach State sweeping UC Irvine. I really wanted to go to this, but I was just too indecisive on if I was going to go to that. And I just said, that's it, I'm not going. UC Santa Barbara beat Bakersfield. Cal Poly outlasted CSUN in 5. That was a massive win right there, just because CSUN has really improved in terms of the Big West, and Cal Poly needed that win to keep pace with the likes of UC Davis and Long Beach State, which we'll get into in a little bit. Sunday, we had number 1 Nebraska sweeping Oregon at the Bob. No surprise there. We had number 3 Kentucky sweeping Texas, which I think might be the first time a team has swept Texas at Texas since probably 2021 or 22, I think it was like either 2013 or something along those lines. It's been a minute since Kentucky has, or any team has swept Texas at Gregory Gymnasium, but what a win for Kentucky. They still remain atop the SEC standings as Eva Hudson led the way with 20 kills. She hit 452. Brooklyn DeLay, she had 18 kills. She hit 417. That's a good sign for Kentucky. You know your team is really good when your top two players are hitting in the 400s and they have 18 and 20 kills respectively. As a team, Kentucky hit 363, which was nice. They only missed 3 serves. They had 5 aces, also nice. They had 7 blocks as a team, pretty good as well. 43 digs, also good. Texas, on the other hand, they had 8 blocks, not bad. 38 digs, solid. 10 of them went to Emma Halter. They had 4 aces to 5 service errors, pretty solid ratio. Tori Stafford led the way for the Longhorns with 15 kills. She had 342. Kari Spears continues her solid freshman campaign, or very good freshman campaign. She had 13 kills. Unfortunately, it was not enough. So we got to have a little bit of a discussion with Texas. What's going on with the Longhorns? Up to this point, they were defeating teams. I know they had a few close calls against the likes of like Stanford in non-league play, or non-conference play, and then Louisville in non-conference play. And then they had a scare against the likes of Tennessee. But again, 2 losses in 1 week, one of which was to A&M and the other was to Kentucky. Not ideal for them. Thankfully, they have the SEC tournament, so they don't got to worry too much, but they just can't have this losing happening when it truly matters. Then we had number 5, Stanford sweeping Wake Forest. Number 7, SMU bouncing back and taking down Duke. We had number 9, Texas A&M taking down number 16, Tennessee in 4 on the road. Very nice win for the Aggies. That could have been an easy letdown spot for Texas A&M, but they were able to pull off the win, which was a very good win. Dropped the first set, but then rebounded by taking the next 3 sets as A&M was led by Kendall Stowers, who had 16 kills. Man, if you're Baylor, you got to be kicking yourself for letting this girl walk out the door. A&M actually had 4 different players with 10 or more kills, as Logan Lenicki added 13 kills to go along with 12 digs. Morgan Perkins and Emily Helmuth both had 10 kills. As a team, A&M hit 265 compared to Tennessee's 138. Ooh. A&M also had 16 blocks as a team compared to Tennessee's 10. Both teams were pretty much even in the dig department. A&M had 5 aces to 12 service errors, while Tennessee only had 3 aces to 6 service errors. The Vols were led by Hayden Kubik, who had 17 kills, and then they also got 7 kills from Zoe Humphrey. But it wasn't enough as A&M, look, between Iowa State and A&M, those 2 are my teams of the week right there. I mean, Iowa State was unranked, and they pulled off 2 big wins against ranked teams, whereas A&M, they handed Texas their first loss, and they also beat Tennessee on the road. Not an easy place to win at, by the way. All right, moving on. We had Purdue. This one, I think, was the reverse sweep. Purdue reverse swept Michigan, which was a massive win for the Boilermakers. Purdue lived on the edge when it came to this match, as they were led by Grace Heaney, who had 19 kills, Kenna Woolard, 16 kills, Akasha Anderson, 11 kills. Michigan, on the other hand, they were led by Allison Jacobs, 17 kills, Ella Dimitrition, who had 13 kills. Despite hitting 298, Michigan did not win, as Purdue hit only 213. But they were able to. They had a nice little ace to service error ratio. 9 aces to only 4 service errors. That's pretty good right there. So overall, a great win for the Boilermakers. But man, they were living on the edge. So if I were Purdue, I would be very careful when it comes to facing these Big Ten opponents. I mean, they always seem to like find a way to win, but they always make it a little tough on themselves, which I don't think that's ideal if you ask me, but I digress. Anyway, moving on. We had Wisconsin sweeping Ohio State. Man, poor Ohio State. They might be off to this might be one of their worst seasons in a minute. And this is with all due respect to Jen Flynn Oldenburg. She's a great coach, but this has to be one of those years. And then we had Miami taking down Syracuse in 4. We had South Carolina taking down number 25 Florida in 4, which was very nice. As the USC of the South was led by Elise Markall, who had 11 kills, while Elena Johnson and Ava Leahy had 10 kills each. Emily Beaker and Victoria Hill both had 8 kills. Nice balance in terms of the South Carolina offense, as they only hit 214, but they had 61 digs. They had 11 blocks as a team, which was very nice. Florida, they had 9 blocks as a team. They had 59 digs. They missed 15 serves. Sorry, that wasn't me throwing up, but still. Ugh. 15 service errors? No wonder this team didn't win. Jordan Bird led the way with 13 kills, along with Alec Roth. Jayla August added 10 kills. Malika Vidicic had 12 kills. So just like South Carolina, Florida was balanced. They hit 247. Unfortunately, those service errors was kind of one of the few reasons why they lost. Though they only had, though South Carolina only had 3 receiving errors, but still. All right, closing off Week 10 with all the upsets we had this little upset right here, and this one was actually kind of a heartwarmer. So number 24 Indiana swept number 19 Penn State. This one was a massive win for Indiana, just because it was actually the first time they swept Penn State at Rec Hall, which was very good. I think it's their first ever win at Rec Hall. So Indiana just continues their success. And if you saw the match, you saw that Steve Aird got emotional after the game. So I think I know the reason why. Not just because he was so proud and Penn State is his alma mater, but yesterday he found out that he lost his freshman roommate a few months ago. And he posted this on X. He says, volleyball is a game Penn State made me. We lost my freshman roommate a few months ago, and I hope this reminds everyone to hug your people. Teams are special. We, quote unquote, get to do hard things together. Being back on campus made you feel 18 again. Love you, G. Till I see you again. So this was George Papadakis. So George Papadakis just recently passed away a few months ago, and Steve Aird, I bet you that was the reason why Steve Aird was kind of emotional. And I can't blame him, because number 1, Penn State is an alma mater. Number 2, pulling off a win like that, you can't script that. I feel George Papadakis was there in person, and he helped guide Steve Aird and Indiana to that sweep over Rec Hall. So that was a nice little feel-good moment right there, and congratulations to Indiana on pulling off that win. And congratulations to Steve Aird as well. Like, the dude is a really amazing coach, and he deserves his flowers. Anyway, for his players, they're led by Jaden Jagger and Avery Tatum, both having 14 kills. Candela Alonso Corcelis added 8 kills for the Hoosiers, who hit 228. They had 45 digs. They only missed 4 serves and had 6 aces. They only had 3.5 blocks, which wasn't terrible. Penn State as a team, they had 7 blocks, but they only had 40 digs, and they only had 1 ace. They missed 12 serves. That's because Penn State is trying to resemble the men's volleyball team, where they play in the same gym as the men's volleyball team. Doesn't mean they got to resemble them with those missed serves. Anyway, Kennedy Martin led the way for the Nittany Lions with 14 kills. They also had 6 kills from Emmy Selman. They hit 233 as a team, but it wasn't enough, as Penn State wound up losing. And sorry, I knocked over my tumbler. But yeah, man, this has just been such a rough year from Penn State. Like, rough doesn't even begin to describe it. So anyway, that's that for Week 10. 50 minutes in counting. Well, close to 50 minutes. So let's jump on into the AVCA/Terraflex Division I women's volleyball poll. Nebraska, with Texas losing, Nebraska is the only team remaining that is undefeated in NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I. There's still Tampa in Division II that's still undefeated as well, but I digress. We're talking NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I. Nebraska is the outright number one, garnering all 61 first-place votes. Kentucky is number 2. Pitt is number 3. Texas is 4. Stanford's 5. A&M is 6. Louisville is 7. Arizona State's 8. Purdue is 9. SMU is 10. Wisconsin is 11. Creighton is 12. Kansas is 13. Miami of Florida is 14. North Carolina had the biggest jump of the week. They are 15. TCU is 16. USC is 17. They jumped up 5 spots, which was pretty nice. Indiana is 18, which is strange because Indiana did beat SC. Anyway, Tennessee is 19. I should also mention that Indiana jumped up 6 spots as well as North Carolina did. Colorado is 20, BYU is 21, Minnesota is 22, Baylor is 23, Iowa State is 24, and Penn State is 25. Yikes. Penn State went from national champions to now being on the doorstep of possibly not being ranked. Ugh. That's tough times for the Nittany Lions. But I digress. Anyway, moving on. So that is that for the AVCA Women's Volleyball poll. Let me know who you all thought stood out in this past week in the NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I. So now we jump to week 11 of the NCAA Women's Volleyball season. So this week, barring any wrenches thrown in my schedule on Friday, I plan to attend the UC Irvine Women's Volleyball match against UC Davis. I'll finally get to see the Aggies. I need to start getting back on the college women's volleyball scene. I know I've been covering a lot of high school girls volleyball, but can you blame me? This is the future of the NCAA women's volleyball. Anyway, Wednesday, some notable matchups on Wednesday. Minnesota at Wisconsin. That's a ranked versus ranked matchup. The only ranked versus ranked matchup right there. BYU's at Arizona. That could be a fun matchup. I mean, if Arizona beats BYU, then we got to have a discussion about the Wildcats. We kind of also have to have a discussion about the Cougs. Another sneaky good matchup, although this team hasn't been great, Florida State against Miami will be interesting. The Sunshine State Showdown. Thursday, we have number 1 Nebraska hosting Illinois. Number 2 Kentucky hosts Missouri. It's a nice little matchup right there. Let's see if the Mizzo Tigers can take down the Wildcats. Colorado is at Kansas. That's a nice little test right there for the Buffs. USC hosts Northwestern. That's pretty much it. I mean, let's be honest. I think USC should win. I mean, it's going to be a homecoming for Tim Nolan, but still. Texas is at Florida on Friday. Let's see if the Longhorns can bounce back against Florida. Florida's going to be itching to try to make it back into the top 25, but in their way is Texas. North Carolina at Stanford is going to be a really good matchup. I want to see what North Carolina could do on the road against the Cardinal. Can they beat Stanford on the road? That remains to be seen. BYU at Arizona State. The last time these two teams met, they went 5 and Arizona prevailed. Let's see if Arizona State can continue their winning ways after they suffered a tough loss to Iowa State. Penn State, Purdue. All right, well, if Penn State wants to really prove themselves, beating Purdue would be a step in the right direction. I mean, Penn State is on the doorstep of being unranked, and that just seems weird for a national champion to go from national champion to now being unranked. And then we have A&M and Auburn. Now, this one I think should be a good matchup. Utah at TCU. That should be a great matchup right there. I want to see what Beth Lawnier's team can do against the Horned Frogs. I also want to see what West Virginia can do against Baylor. Let's see how Baylor can bounce back. I want to see what Vanderbilt can do against Tennessee. If I recall correctly, I think Vanderbilt took down Missouri on Sunday, and that might have been their biggest win this season. That might be their biggest win, period, just because they haven't had too many of those big-time wins just because they're a new program and whatnot. Let me just check. Did they win? I'm not seeing them. I could have sworn Vanderbilt beat somebody significant. I swear I'm not going crazy. Oh, I'm looking at Saturday. Derp. Sunday. Here's Sunday. Did those Mizzo Tigers beat Vandy? I could have sworn Vanderbilt. Yeah, Vanderbilt beat Missouri in 5. So yeah, let's. Okay. I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail about this matchup, but I know Vanderbilt's not having the most glamorous season, and I know they wound up losing. Their record doesn't say, but they're at least going in the right direction. I mean, Anders Nelson is taking a team from scratch and trying to build it from the ground up. That's never an easy thing to do, and I admire what Anders has done. Anyway, but Vanderbilt Tennessee should be an underrated matchup. Iowa Indiana, I forget what Iowa did over the weekend. I think they won against some team of significance for the first time in a hot minute. But yeah, Iowa, Indiana, I think Indiana should handle them. With all due respect to Iowa. Those are Friday's matchups. Saturday, we have Nebraska at Minnesota. If Minnesota were a little bit more at full strength, I'd say this would be a good matchup. But I just think Nebraska should handle them. But maybe Minnesota can make it tough on Nebraska. Miami, Florida State, round 2. That should be a nice one. Colorado at Kansas State. That should be an underrated matchup. Don't be surprised if Kansas State pulls off an upset like they did against Kansas. And that should pretty much be it. But I should wait. Friday is Long Beach State at Cal Poly. That should be a good one. Long Beach State, I want to see what they could do on the road. I want to see if they could pull off a massive win on the road on Friday, because Cal Poly is undefeated, and Long Beach State beat Cal Poly the first go-around. If there's anything that Cal Poly should do against Long Beach State, it's run the middle. If they could run the middle and pass well, allowing their middles to feast in the middle, I think they can beat Long Beach State. But honestly, I mean, for the sake of Long Beach State, I think a win would definitely help them, because whoever wins will probably be in outright second place unless we get another big time, unless we get a shakeup in the Big West, which wouldn't surprise me, but I digress. Then Sunday, we have Tennessee at Kentucky. Nice little rivalry matchup right here. I'm certain Kentucky, unless this is a letdown spot for them, I think Kentucky should beat Tennessee. Indiana and Wisconsin, this is a nice little headline matchup right here. I think the Hoosiers can beat Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin does have a lot of firepower on their team with the likes of Mimi Collier, Grace Egan, Carter Booth. The list goes on and on. I think Wisconsin on paper should win, but don't be surprised if Indiana pulls off the win against the Badgers. And Utah-Baylor should be a nice little matchup right there. Penn State-Illinois, if there's ever a time for Illinois to beat Penn State, it's now. Illinois, if they could beat Penn State, then that might actually impress the committee. But Penn State is just on a massive slide. So Penn State needs to get up off the mat ASAP. USC at Washington is an interesting matchup. I think USC could win that one, but don't be surprised if Washington gives them a little bit of a scare. So that should pretty much do it for all the notable matchups right there. West Virginia and at TCU is kind of an interesting matchup, but I wouldn't hold my breath on TCU losing that one. But that'll do it for the Diet Coke version of Week 11 preview. Let me know about if there are any other NCAA women's volleyball matches that we should all keep an eye out for in Week 11. But let's take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we've got some high school girls volleyball to discuss as the CI Southern Section Division I playoffs are down to just 2 teams. Keep it locked here. You're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the '08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies,
And your one-timers,
you wicked wristas.
and be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., and I'm welcoming you to take another lap with the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. Yes, this is the Extra Mile with me and my co-hosts Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. We talk everything racing, from NASCAR to IndyCar to Formula One to limited hydroplanes, endurance racing, the NHRA, and more. So come join us for an hour of great racing talk and a lot of fun as well on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 8 p.m. only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson,
It's your boy Lentarius Lava.
and we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball, from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
And welcome back to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our other shows, as we will close off the show talking some high school girls volleyball. Thank you all for tuning in. And without any further delay, let's talk some high school girls volleyball. So, all right. So CIF. Oh, this is the CIF seat. So 12 teams remain. These are the teams that pretty much started off. So now we're down to just 2 teams. Here's where all of the 12 teams that were in Division 1. And I'm just going to keep it to Division 1 and whatnot. And the quarterfinals was actually quite wild. Well, not quite wild, but it was basically a fun little ride with one match. I went to the Mater Dei Harvard Westlake match, and unfortunately, it was kind of expected as Mater Dei wound up sweeping that match. But we did get one upset. We had San Juan Hills upsetting Redondo Union in 5. So that was a massive win for San Juan Hills. Megan Hodges just continues to just have herself a great sophomore year. This is a San Juan Hills team that doesn't start too many seniors. I think they start one senior, and the rest are just juniors and sophomores. So the fact that San Juan Hills pulled off that win speaks to high volumes of how good they truly are. But and then also Temecula Valley, or Sierra Canyon swept Temecula Valley. I was wrong about this matchup. Marymount swept Miracosta. I was not expecting a sweep. I thought Miracosta would have at least pushed it to 5, but man, that Marymount team was pretty good. And in the semifinals, I went to this matchup. Mater Dei swept San Juan Hills on the road. That was just one of those clunker matchups that San Juan Hills had. It wasn't due to a lack of effort. It was just because Mater Dei was just stacked across the board. And Laylee Ostavar, she actually tweaked her knee in the Harvard Westlake match, but she was ready to go in the San Juan Hills match, and she just was on fire. She and Wesley Matavao were on fire, as well as Addison Cody and Shua Adefemiwa, Emma Kingston as well. Lizzie Robinson, who's the libero for Mater Dei, she is tough as nails. She dug Megan Hodges twice, and she even had a dig kill in that match. So overall, Mater Dei just really took San Juan Hills to the shed. But that was more of a clunker match for San Juan Hills. Not trying to take anything away from Mater Dei, but Mater Dei was just on their A game. And then the other semifinal was Sierra Canyon versus Marymount. That one was the barn burner of the night in terms of the CIF Southern Section Division I quarterfinals. It wasn't as good as Redondo Union, San Juan Hills, but Sierra Canyon was able to avoid the upset. They hosted this matchup, and they were able to take down Marymount in 5, which was massive just because Sierra Canyon moves to 3-1 against Marymount this season. Their only loss to them was in the Durango tournament final. So now your championship match is between the number 1 seed Sierra Canyon and the number 3 seed Mater Dei. So it's a rematch of last year's CIF Southern Section Division I championship. And this is going to be an interesting matchup just because it's the first meeting between these two teams and they have yet to meet one another. So there's a lot of talent on both of these teams. So start off with Sierra Canyon. So Sierra Canyon, obviously they're pretty much junior heavy. They have the likes of McKenna McIntosh, Kendall Omarui, Eva Jeffries, who is getting comparisons to Olivia Babcock, which is wild. You have Hannah McGinnis, not Riley McGinnis, Hannah McGinnis. You also have the likes of Lucky Fasavalu, Olive Shum, and then Maddie Zaragoza. Like, this team is just stacked all across the board. This team, and again, most of these players returned from last year's team that made the final. The only player that didn't really return is Lauren Lynch, who is doing her thing at University of San Diego. But yeah, this is a Sierra Canyon team that has so much talent across the board. It's not even funny. Like, I know people will say they got Kendall Marui from Arizona, and then they got McKenna McIntosh from St. Mary's in Northern California. But still, this is a Sierra Canyon team that is stacked all across the board. It is just absolutely ridiculous. These players are the NCAA Division I women's volleyball players of tomorrow. And this Sierra Canyon team is going to be really tough to stop. On the flip side, Mater Dei is another interesting team. This team has been to the finals 3 straight years. Yeah, 3 straight years. I was going to say 4 or 5, but 2022, they didn't make it. That was Miracosta and Sierra Canyon, where Sierra Canyon wound up winning its first D1 championship in its team's history. But for Mater Dei, the first player that kind of comes to mind is Laylee Ostavar and Wesley Matavao. I mean, as long as Laylee Ostavar is healthy, this Mater Dei team is going to be dangerous. And same with Wesley Matavao. I mean, Mater Dei has not been 100%. They already have their standout freshman, Jaylee, I think her name is Jaylee Smith or Jayla Smith. Jaylee Smith, she is out. She had, I think it was a foot injury or an ankle injury. So, and I saw her in a boot against Harvard Westlake. But regardless, this Mater Dei team has not been at full strength. I mean, if and when this team ever gets to full strength, this might be as full strength gets. Like, it's even gotten to the point where they've had to convert some of their middles to right side players, like Emma Kingston. She normally plays middle blocker, but now she's converted to playing opposite, which is nice. They also have Addison Cody, who's bound for USC. She's a senior. She has been really good in the middle this year. She's not as tall as Kendall Marui, but honestly, she is just as effective, and she blocks the ball well. Sierra Robinson, I think, is another good security blanket for Mater Dei. She's not as flashy as Cody or Kingston, but she's still just as good. And Shua Adefemiwa, when she got eligible against Torrey Pines, I knew this player was something special. I think Shua is definitely a big-time player, and she's definitely a very valuable asset on the right side. She is what Mater Dei has been missing, because I don't think Laylee Ostavar or Wesley Mataval can play the right side. They're not opposites. They're outside hitters. But Shua is, and Shui has definitely been a bright spot for this Mater Dei team. Libero has also been kind of an interesting position for Mater Dei, because they definitely have a bunch of players that can play the libero position. But one player that does come to mind is Lizzie Robinson. She transferred from Florida. She is a fantastic player. Oregon bound. She is a stud, and I think she's gonna be massive for Mater Dei. I think she's probably going to be the difference maker for Mater Dei in terms of their defense. I would not be surprised if she has 20 digs in that match against Sierra Canyon this weekend. And then center has been really interesting. They have Kalea Lee, who transferred from Cathedral Catholic. She is a fantastic talent. But they also have Sam Kapinpin, who I definitely think is a steady Eddie, if you ask me. But Kalea Lee is definitely on her A game at setter, and she is now leading this Mater Dei team proudly. And the coaching staffs for both these teams are absolutely amazing. Dan Odell with Mater Dei, he has only missed the Division I finals once. Well, Mater Dei has always been in Division I in terms of the CIF playoffs, but he's only missed the finals once. Stephanie Wigfall of Sierra Canyon, she has really brought this team up from the ground. I remember when Sierra Canyon was winning the CIF Southern Section and CIF State in the lower divisions, but then they went up to Division I. They played Mater Dei in the 2008 semifinals. They had May Pertovsky, who was a stud for them, got to have an illustrious career at Michigan and Washington. And honestly, she was amazing, and Stephanie Wigfall was amazing as well. And she's really coached a lot of amazing players like Olivia Babcock. Babcock was on that 2022 team when Sierra Canyon wound up winning in Division I. So overall, this is going to be an all-star filled matchup. It is a star-studded matchup between two really good teams. Now it's time for the toughest part of the show, me picking a winner. So, as we all know, I am either the best at predicting this, or I'm either the worst at predicting this. So, first and foremost, my only big hope is I hope we get a big crowd. First and foremost, if you're in the Cerritos College area or you have NFHS, please watch this matchup. This is the battle of the future college women's volleyball players of tomorrow, and maybe even the future Olympians of tomorrow. So, and second of all, I'm hoping this does not become a sweep, because the last two finals, which Mater Dei wound up winning, were sweeps. Mater Dei swept Sierra Canyon last year, which I wouldn't say was a pretty matchup, but still, I mean, Mater Dei just handled them. But then again, Sierra Canyon was just so inexperienced. And then the year before, Mater Dei swept Miracosta. They took that close set, and then they wound up running away with it in the second and third set. That is the infamous match right there, which I'll get into in a little bit. But now it's time for me to pick a winner between Mater Dei and Sierra Canyon. All right, so I have gone back and forth on this. And for those that did see my personal X account, you probably know who I'm picking. But look, this is the battle between talented players and then talented players versus talented players. It's kind of, if you normally, when it comes to like sporting events like the Super Bowl, you have like a rundown of which teams check the boxes. And I mean, I think it would be split down the middle 50-50. I think maybe Mater Dei has the advantage over at the libero position, with all due respect to Sierra Canyon. I think for middle blockers, Sierra Canyon has that position filled, with all due respect to Mater Dei. The pins are pretty much dead even. The setters are also pretty much dead even. But here's the thing. I'm actually going to pick I'm picking Mater Dei to win this whole thing, and here's why. In case you don't know what Mater Dei is, I mean, most people will probably rag on the fact that both these teams are private schools and they have access to recruiting. Well, let me just say, Mater Dei has had most of these players on their championship teams since the beginning. I mean, I know last year was kind of the exception with Wesley Matavau, but back in 2022 and 23, or 2024 and 23, back when they had the likes of Layli Ostavar and her sisters. They also had Addison Cody, who was a sophomore as a middle. They had Emma Kingston as a freshman when they wound up winning it 2 years ago. I know setters have kind of changed. I know Kalea Lee was at Cathedral Catholic back then, but Kalea Lee has experience playing finals matches. This isn't her first rodeo. She did play in the CIF San Diego section finals against Torrey Pines when she was at Cathedral Catholic. My only concern is for Mater Dei is if they run into the block of Kendall Omarui. My hope for them is that they are able to like find a way around the block, but the way that Mater Dei played against San Juan Hills, and Megan Hodges is tall. She's like 6'5", and as well as Whitney Port. She's a blocking machine. I think Mater Dei, if they play the way that they did against San Juan Hills, I don't think Mater Dei is going to be losing against Sierra Canyon. I think the familiarity of the players being in the CIF Southern Section Finals is what is the big kicker for me. I think that is the big reason why. I think the familiarity of Mater Dei of Mater Dei's players being in the CIF Southern Section Finals will be the key, just because they have the familiarity of being in the Southern Section Finals. They have the experience of being in the Southern Section Finals. And more importantly, they just have that connection with one another, that team bond. Now, I'm not saying that Sierra Canyon doesn't have a team bond with one another. I think for Sierra Canyon, they're going to be just as good. And honestly, I'm just going to tell it to you all like it is. This is going to be Mater Dei's toughest championship to win in the CIF Southern Section Division I girls volleyball final. This is going to be the most difficult. Last year, they faced a bunch of sophomores and juniors. Well, actually, I think they faced a bunch of sophomores, period. And then the year before, they won that first set in overtime against Miracosta, and then they just sucked all the momentum away from Miracosta. This one is going to be so much more difficult to win if you're Mater Dei. This is going to be a massively difficult one. Sierra Canyon wants revenge from last year. They have all of this talent on their team. McKenna McIntosh is going to USC. Kendall Marui is going to Nebraska. Eva Jeffries has a bright future ahead of her. Lucky Fasavalu has a bright future ahead of her as well. A lot of these players have bright futures ahead of them. And honestly, this Sierra Canyon team is determined. Like, I bet you they really wanted to face Mater Dei in tournaments, especially Durango. I think they only met in Durango. They were the only times they did meet was in Durango, because Sierra Canyon played in the likes of Ann Kang, which they didn't see Mater Dei. They played in Durango, which they didn't see Mater Dei. Marymount beat Mater Dei in the semifinals. And then Sierra Canyon played in the Redondo Power Classic, which Mater Dei did not play in. Whereas Mater Dei played in the likes of the Nike tournament in Florida, the Nike tournament in Arizona, and then the Durango tournament. So overall for Mater Dei, I think their familiarity and their team bond with one another, I think, will be the difference maker in terms of winning CIF. But again, this is going to be Mater Dei's toughest CIF championship to win in girls volleyball, because Sierra Canyon is raring to go. They are ready for anything. I think this team really is determined to win. They want to win it for last year's seniors. They want to win it for this year's seniors. But I think this year will be Mater Dei's year for the third straight year. And Mater Dei has a chance to make history, because I'm going to be honest, I don't even remember the last time a team three-peated in Division I. I think it might go back to like the Mira Costa days or something. I mean, I probably should have been more prepared in terms of who was the last team to three-peat in Division I in girls volleyball. But overall, I think this modern day team is going to be really good. I think this modern day team will be really prepared. They know the block is going to be ahead of them. And again, I think Lizzie Robinson is going to be an X factor because she will dig the ball well. She's going to be facing a lot of good talent like Jeffries and McIntosh and Omarui. But I think Lizzie Robinson will be ready. And I think Lily Ostavar and Wesley Mataval will be ready as well. I just think that Modern Day has that more familiarity. I know Shua Adefemiwa hasn't been to the CIF Division I finals. I know this will be different for Lizzie Robinson. It'll be different for Kendall Omarui and McKenna McIntosh, but I think Modern Day will win this. I imagine it's going to be a barn burner. I really don't want this to be a sweep. That's my biggest hope. If this final ends in a sweep, no matter who wins, I will be ultimately disappointed. But I got Modern Day winning the whole thing. I just think Modern Day, with the familiarity and the team bond and the athleticism and the experience in the finals, I think that'll be the difference maker. But I definitely think Sierra Canyon will give them a run for their money. And honestly, I am prepared to eat a lot of crow if Sierra Canyon does prove me wrong. So 2 years ago, I made this whole prediction. Back when Set Point was on Spreaker on audio, I made the prediction of picking Mira Costa over Modern Day. And here's why. I took into consideration Modern Day had won the CIF Southern Section Championship, but I also took into consideration that Mira Costa had finals experience because they had lost the year before against Sierra Canyon. And then Mira Costa was also trying to end a drought, which they hadn't won a CIF Southern Section Championship since 2007, which I think that was the year they had Alex Kleinman. Yeah, the Alex Kleinman on their team, which was darn good. She was darn good. And we all know what happened with her. She had an amazing, illustrious beach volleyball career, wound up winning gold at the Olympics. So I think and the funny story is that one of Modern Day's players, Layli Ostavar, she heard that segment. She was at that right place at the right time. She heard my segment. She heard me picking Mira Costa over Modern Day. And then afterward, she replies to me and says, "We'll see about that, Teran." And then I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, oh, this is bad. And then after Modern Day took that first set against Mira Costa that year in the finals, I was like, oh boy. And as the match went by, I was thinking to myself, I think I'm in trouble. Uh-oh. And they wound up winning in 3. But Layli was a good sport. She messaged me afterwards. She said, so the reason why we were better than them, or one of the reasons, or one oversight you had, was because we did not have our middles against Mira Costa, and we were coming off of a tournament where we were just tired and gassed. And that was a complete oversight on my behalf. I did not know. I totally forgot that Mira Costa was coming off of that Volleypalooza tournament in Texas. And I also forgot that, and I also didn't know that their middles were out. Their starting middles were out. Like that, they must not have had Addison Cody or Emma Kingston against Mira Costa in the first meeting at Mira Costa. So, again, Layli was a great sport, and that's how I kind of have been covering modern day girls volleyball. I mean, it's not that I don't want to cover the other teams. It's just that they're talented and they know who I am, and they have the familiarity. So that was kind of a nice little, fun little story right there. A nice little what goes around comes around, where Lily said, "We'll see about that, Teran." And she even told me, I think one of her teammates said, we even heard that part of me picking against Modern Day, and that we all had a nice little laugh right there. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into covering high school girls volleyball. So she was, but honestly, I do appreciate Lily's support for Set Point and me. It really does mean a lot. I'm willing to support her and other kids out there, especially if they are willing to support me. Like, that means so much. So anyway, that's that little story right there but like I said, I'm prepared to eat crow when it comes to if Sierra Canyon does pull off the win. If Mater Dei wins, then they three-peat, which, man, it's been a minute since we've had a three-peat in Division I. We have to go. Well, I'll probably dig up the record books of who was the last team to three-peat in CIF Southern Section Division I girls volleyball, but I digress. Anyway, but that is going to do it for the girls volleyball portion of this show. Also on Saturday, Long Beach State is hosting Long Beach State men's volleyball is hosting a tournament at the Walter Pyramid, which I'm probably going to go to. The last 2 weekends, Long Beach State has had scrimmages against the likes of Concordia Irvine and Vanguard, respectfully. Concordia Irvine last week and then Vanguard the weekend before. So this probably will be the last chance you'll see Long Beach State at the Walter Pyramid before they move on. So I think it's definitely going to be worth noting. And we have been seeing some fall ball, some highlights in the stories on Instagram, and I guess some highlights in terms of watching on some clips on Instagram from like content creators. But I plan to go to that Long Beach State men's volleyball tournament at the Walter Pyramid this Saturday. If I could start 3 and out if Larry and I start 3 and out at 7 a.m., then I should be there on time, but we shall see. But until then, that'll do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Thank you all for tuning in. I really do appreciate everybody that tuned in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. By the way, I do want to give one final farewell to Ricky Keeler or Ricky K. Tonight is actually his final episode of the Bullpen Bulletin. This is actually the season finale of Bullpen Bulletin, as that's going on right now, or it's probably ended right now. But I do want to give a final Set Point salute to Ricky Keeler. After tonight, he'll be doing his own thing, and he was a great teammate to have, and I hope he does great things in the near future. I hope he shoots for the moon, and shoots for the stars. But Ricky, I really do appreciate everything that you did for IE Sports Radio. We'll miss you, brother. But until then, I'll see you, Ricky K, on the other side. And I'll see you all on Friday, most likely when UC Irvine hosts UC Davis in women's volleyball. Have a great rest of the night, and I will see you soon. Peace!